Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to all. And good morning to everyone joining in from UK. My name is Nikita, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm a senior program manager at Pride Circle. Thank you for joining us to celebrate the second edition of IWEI and to honor the IWEI Top Employers 2021. IWEI stands for India Workplace Equality Index, and it is the country's first benchmarking tool that enables organizations to measure their progress for LGBT plus inclusion. IWEI is a joint initiative between Kesav Suri Foundation, Pride Circle, and Stonewall, and we are so delighted to have FICCI as an industry partner. To celebrate this iconic moment, this how the next 2 hours looks like. We have curated a power-packed agenda which will reflect diverse thoughts and the affirmative actions organizations are taking to make difference towards LGBT plus inclusion in India. Next slide, please. We would like to extend our heartfelt thank you to our headline sponsor, IBM, and associate sponsor, HSBC. Before we begin, a few housekeeping rules. Please keep yourself on mute, and in case you have any questions, please type your questions, comments in the chat box, and we will try and address it during the course of the event. With that, and without further ado, may I invite Ram, co-founder Pride Circle, to set the tone for the event. Over to you, Ram.
Hey, thank you, Nikki. And I'm super excited to be here. I am Ram, co-founder of Pride Circle. It is indeed a historic day today where we have come together to celebrate the progress India Inc. has made for LGBT plus inclusion with IWEI 2021. And what a year it has been. Calling it difficult would be an understatement. We thank all the participating companies for showing up, for participating, for continuing the focus on LGBT plus inclusion. This year saw ERGs transform into COVID-19 war rooms. Employees were gasping for breath and hospitals were running out of beds. But sticking together, caring and striving to do better saw us through the second wave of the pandemic. The crisis taught us new meaning of belonging, and ERG stepping up to support the employees who needed help is true allyship, which is intersectional, which is need-based and for everyone. Belonging is taking care of each other, celebrating our differences, and progressing forward together. Leave no one behind. This year, we saw 72 companies participate and 26 earn the gold, 18 silver, and 13 bronze top employer award. Many congratulations to all the organizations. The parameters and bar for the awards for IWEI 2021 are a reflection of the times and the reality we are faced with. This year, we saw companies stepping up to support the wider LGBT plus community with vaccination drives, food and medicine supply, and mental health support, and more. We saw job advertisements in newspaper for trans people in a place like Bokaro by Tata Steel. These are great steps to foster inclusion in the country. IWEI is a celebration of the progress as organizations individually and also collectively. At Pride Circle, we held Rise Job Fair in the peak of the second wave. That's definitely not the plan. It was a surprise for us. But during this time, many of the companies' TA teams were impacted, but all the companies stuck through, showed up, and hired. We are proud to have facilitated 174 and counting job offers for LGBT plus talent through Rise 2021. And we look forward to doubling that count for Rise 2022 that will be held on April 30th next year. We also brought to life the Pride Education Summit for students, educators, parents, and workplaces, building a better tomorrow for the future generations. And we launched the Rainbow Bazaar, which is an e-commerce platform exclusively for LGBT-owned businesses, for financial independence is key to social acceptance. We have found great partners in you that inspire us to raise the bar higher and do more. So thank you for all the collaboration and the partnership. The IWEI team from Kesav Suri Foundation, Pride Circle, and Stonewall has worked really hard to bring you the second index edition. And we hope that you derive great value from participation and the customized reports. Like we said, IB is about collective progress. This is about helping each other, sharing best practices, and collectively become a better country, become better employers, and make a better tomorrow for LGBT community here. This is a journey in which we are together for building an inclusive world, and it needs everyone's participation. We are grateful to IBM and HSBC for the kind sponsorship in these difficult times, for going above and beyond. We congratulate you for all the great work you do for LGBT plus inclusion at your workplaces and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will now quickly share with you some key stats from IB this year. Allow me a second. Thank you. 72 organizations participated, 26 gold, 18 silver, and 13 organizations achieved the bronze award. 15 entrants, the number of industry sectors represented in IB 2021 are from 15 different sectors. 63% is the average overall score for 2021, which is a significant improvement from last year. So thank you again for raising the bar on this. We also found that the highest performing sectors were consulting and professional services, and the highest performing sections within IB were policies and benefits and the employee resource group. That effectively means that most of our participating organizations have done great work when it comes to policies and employee resource group. So congratulations again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ram, for such great insights. And it is truly a moment of great pride for all of us to make IB robust and successful. With that, moving on to the most awaited moment of IB winners. And I request Akshay to take the lead and to take the stage and do the honors for IB bronze employers. Over to you, Akshay.
Thank you, Nikki. Namaskar, everyone. My name is Akshay Tyagi and my pronouns are he, him, his. It's such an honor to start with the awarding for IB 2.0. Before announcing the results, I would like to begin telling all my queer friends and family members that by not changing yourself, you're changing the world. And for my friends attending this today, I would also like to tell them that not all of us start from the same point. We are proud of the fact that we are all here today to celebrate our efforts, no matter how big or small. But by joining and supporting each other, we will surely be able to create an equal, equitable, inclusive, and safe space for each other, which we all belong to. Thank you. And coming to the awards, so bronze employers have basically are the awardees who have started their journey to better LGBTQI plus inclusion at workplace by developing inclusive policies and initiating activities that promote LGBTQ plus inclusion for employees. And in this category, we have awardees, AB InBAF, Technologies, Eli Lilly, EasyTap, Firmenich, Fujitsu, International Flavors and Fragrances, John Deere India Private Limited, Perexcel, Randstad, VIP Industries Limited, and 2 anonymous organizations. So on behalf of all of us, a huge congratulations to all of you, and keep igniting minds and bringing in change.
Thank you, Akshay, and congratulations once again to all the bronze winners. Next up, we have silver award winners. This award is assigned to employers who have made significant achievements in promoting LGBT plus inclusion at the workplace, demonstrating progress and impact over time. And the winners are, going by the alphabetical order, Barclays, BlackRock, CRISIL, Pfizer, Ford, Gap, Infosys, Invesco, Macquarie, Micron, Morgan Stanley, Myntra, Northern Trust, Societe Generale, Sutherland, Tata Consultancy Services, Wells Fargo, and we have 1 anonymous participation. Many congratulations to all the silver award winners. Moving on, may I now invite Vicky Hayden, Head of Global Partnership, Stonewall, to do the honors for IB Gold employers. Over to you, Vicky.
Thanks, Nikki. I'm so excited to be able to share the gold employers for this year's India Workplace Equality Index. So we have 26 gold award winners, and they are Accenture, Bain & Company, Boston Consulting Group, Citi, Citrix, Deloitte, Deutsche Bank, Dow, EY, GE, Google, HSBC, IBM, Intuit, London Stock Exchange Group, MasterCard, McKinsey Global Services, McKinsey Knowledge, Microsoft, Nielsen IQ, Novartis, Standard Chartered, Tata Steel, ThoughtWorks, VMware, and Wipro. Congratulations to all of the gold employers.
Thank you, Vicky, and heartiest congratulations to all the winners, and many thanks for your participation in IWEI 2021. We truly appreciate your efforts to create an inclusive workplace. Now we have the unveiling of the report. The report is available to download at www.workplaceequalityindex.in. Please visit the site and download the copy of the report. With this, moving on to our headline sponsor keynote, and would like to invite Anuj Malhotra, Vice President, Service Lines and Operation from IBM. Over to you, Anuj.
I want to thank the Pride Circle for recognizing IBM as a gold LGBT plus employer and for hosting this conference to bring forth conversations on LGBT plus inclusion. Congratulations to the other organizations that are recognized as amongst the most inclusive companies along with us. I also acknowledge those who are steadily progressing in their inclusion journey for the community. This conference is a celebration of how many more organizations are becoming aware and inclusive of the LGBT plus talent that is out there. Now, as humans, unless extremely conscious, we tend to only include people who are like ourselves. The moment we interact with people who are different from us, we tend to put ourselves in a shell. Perhaps we don't understand them, perhaps we disagree with them, perhaps we fear them, or perhaps we simply feel uncomfortable with them. Usually you would think people who exclude others exclude them out of superiority complex, but I think it's more because of inferiority complex, and I'm taking the liberty for saying inferiority, which means fear of others that we do not understand, right? We reject them and we inflict hate on others because just we don't take the trouble of trying to understand them. We can go on talking inclusion on the surface, but deep in our conscious or unconscious, we will go on excluding them, and that's what's hurting the cause, right? When you go around and see what's happening around the world, despite so much of inclusion, there is limited inclusion that you see out in the world, right? I guess part of it is because we don't make an effort to understand each other, right? We don't make an effort to try and understand what the LGBT plus population is all about. If being a company of choice for clients and being an employer of choice for employees is your priority, then creating an inclusive environment at work is not an option. It is a must. Diversity and inclusion is a business and human imperative. Organizations and us leaders need to develop the muscle of helping people bringing their whole selves to work and to create a positive impact on the society at large by making them feel welcome in everything we do in our organizations. For a company's success, it is imperative that our workforce is a reflection of the marketplace. This conference is a great platform to engage, share, learn, and devise practices to foster LGBT+. Inclusion at work and beyond, right? I mean, that's something we should all think about, share best practices about at the conference, and worry about to make sure that we get it in a better place. Now, IBM has had a legacy of about 111 years of diversity, inclusion, and equity at work. Whether it is recruiting our first woman and African American employee in 1899, or hiring people with disabilities in 1914, or publishing our equal opportunity policy in 1953. We have always remained at the forefront. These have been our business imperatives much before any Civil Rights Act or legislation was out there. We launched our first LGBT plus council in 1995. And since then, LGBT plus inclusion has been a significant part of our vision in India as well, way before Section 377 was written down. We have always been a bold ally in demonstrating our support for the community. Over the past years at IBM, we have increasingly opened discussions on the topics of sexual identity, orientation, personal identity, privilege, and allyship. These are bold, difficult, and sensitive conversations, and are much needed so that we can address issues of biases and of social injustice, and so that we are able to continue to speak for those who are being marginalized and discriminated. We have taken a number of decisive steps to create a culture where employees of all backgrounds can thrive. Just to give you a few examples of what we're doing at IBM, we focus on enabling IBMers to progress from being a passive bystander to an active upstander for the LGBT plus community. The approach is to have a constant, regular, repetitive conversation through various channels and programs in different settings to encourage people to know, understand, acknowledge, embrace, and become active allies. This is done through trainings and sensitization sessions, panel and round table discussions, showcasing employee, both LGBT plus and allies, video stories, and leveraging humor to make it easy to receive the messaging that we are giving. We also organize movie matinee shows focused on movies on the LGBT plus theme. And we've followed those up with open discussions, basically talking of its relevance to our existence and why it's so important for IBM. We also have learning modules, and we have a set of trainers and facilitators who help us take this message and trainings to our employee base, right? And we do a lot of that as well. We do a lot of reverse mentoring as well, even for leadership, including myself, where we bring members from the LGBT plus community to also mentor us and tell us what, how else can we make things better for the community. The intent overall is to encourage IBMers to become more aware, active, and conscious allies. Now, I should talk to you about a story, right? I mean, and I think a lot of times we think we know what we know, and we think we're doing the best we can. And about 3 years ago, I was asked to go to Philippines to run the delivery centers for IBM there. It's a beautiful country, 7,400 islands, 40% inhabited. So if you really want to go to virgin beaches, that's the place to go. But then why am I speaking to you about Philippines, right? It's a very, very interesting country, beautiful people. I loved my stint in Philippines there. But the notable thing about that country is I'm a 90+% Christian, and about 84% out of that is staunch Catholic. They take a lot of pride in their religion. The Christmas season actually starts, I think, 1st of September and goes on till about the second week of January, depending on how you count the days when Christmas gets over. And it's the longest Christmas season anywhere in the world. And one would think that a kind of a 84% Catholic Christian country would have challenges around, accepting the LGBT plus population, or, making them comfortable and, making sure that they are felt included. And I was so pleasantly surprised, I can't explain this to you. I mean, it was very, very, I think they do much more than we have ever done in our part of the world for the LGBT plus population. Some of the best contributors, some of the most productive resources, some of the smartest, some of the best with clients resources were from LGBT plus community working with us, and also in my direct leadership team. It was an experience to remember. I think they taught me a thing or two, and I think we should go back and look at outside India what we are doing in our organization and also bring that back to this country, right? But there is much more out there for leaders like ourselves to learn than we believe we do, because I think, quite often we believe that we know what we're doing and we know the best, right? And that's how we always try and live this life. But I believe there is lots more to learn on inclusion, lots more to do on inclusion rather than just talk about it, and a lot more action to take. Today we are hiring in high numbers. I guess most of the other organizations who are in this conference are doing the same as well. But one of our major agendas is to make sure that we add more diversity as we hire. Add more diversity, not just in the lower rungs of our organization, but in the highest rungs of our organization, to make sure that we have people with decision-making roles from the LGBT plus population as well. Diversity and inclusion in our mind is not a destination, it is a journey. While we have come a long way in this journey, we are still learning and growing and making progress as we try and build a more inclusive IBM and society at large. It is heartening to see so many organizations coming together, making efforts in furthering this inclusion agenda, sharing the best practices, and ensuring that we keep the conversation intentional and purposeful to build a more inclusive world. Once again, thank you, Pride Circle, for recognizing IBM as a gold employer for the community. It inspires us to do more, and we will always do more. Thank you, and a pleasure to be able to speak to you all.
Thank you so much, Anuj, for such inspiring thoughts and your kind words for IB team. And it's really great to know that how IBM is progressing in LGBT plus inclusion journey. With that, moving on, we have a panel discussion with our gold employers on raising the bar, and would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Shubhra Sharma, Head HR, HSBC, Sumanta Das, Director, Product Development, QuickBooks Online, and India Pride ERG, Executive Sponsor, Intuit, Kushal Kandar, Global Pride Manager, BCG, and this discussion will be moderated by Nancy Kelly, CEO, Stonewall. Over to you, Nancy.
Thank you so much, and it is an enormous pleasure to be here at the second year of the India Workplace Equality Index. It's one of the partnerships of which I'm most proud. My name's Nancy, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the Chief Exec of Stonewall, and I'm really, really delighted to have the opportunity to chair this panel today. And I'm hoping that it will be a really inspirational panel. So you'll have noticed that the panel is made up of employers that have been awarded gold in IWEI 2021. So we're hoping that it will provide food for thought and inspiration to others on the call who are looking to achieve gold in the coming years of the index. So if you have questions for our panel, then please post them. And in the meantime, I'm going to start by just asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves and their role in their organization. So perhaps starting with Shubhra and then Samantha and Kushal.
Thanks, Nancy. First of all, a big thank you to you and the team for recognizing us. We really appreciate it. It really encourages us to keep doing the good work. So a big thank you, and also for the opportunity to come here, interact with other industry organizations, forums, and share our thoughts. So big thank you for that. By way of introduction, I'm heading HR for HSBC Global Service Delivery Centers in Bangalore and Vizag. I'm also the diversity and inclusion lead for all our global service delivery centers for HSBC, and really passionate about providing the support to our diverse communities, ensuring that from a HR perspective, we are doing the best to ensure a safe, comfortable, welcoming environment for all our colleagues. So thank you.
Sumanta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Nancy. And again, I would like to start with thanking you as well as Pride Circle for giving us this opportunity, and also for the recognition second time in a row for being a gold employer in the IWEI Index 2021. Really happy and super excited. And also congratulations to all the other organizations for participating and championing the DEI at workplace. So what makes workplaces happy, safe, and belonging, right? We definitely learn from each other, and as Shubha mentioned, it's always good to be in this kind of an environment. Introducing myself, my name is Shumanto Das. My pronouns are he, him. I work as a director engineering in Intuit India in Bangalore office. And I am also the executive sponsor for the Pride Network for Intuit India. In this particular role as an executive sponsor, my role is basically to create a kind of a environment wherein we can enable all employees to be themselves and bring their whole selves to work, because that's one of our core value as Stronger Together. And as part of that, we have like a core employee resource group, which I lead, especially in India, and also collaborate with similar kind of ERGs across our global sites as well, and championing together the mission of building Intuit as a DEI place. Happy to be here. Thank you.
That's so fantastic. And then finally, Kushal, do you mind introducing yourself to our guests?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nancy. And once again, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks to Pride Circle and to you. So my name is Kushal Khandar. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the Global Pride at BCG Manager. So as part of my full-time role, I actually shape BCG's global LGBTQ diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. I took on this role last year. Before this, I spent 6 years as a management consultant, largely in the India office of BCG, when I was also heading the Pride Network in India. Really happy to be here and excited about the conversation. Over to you back, Nancy.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm really excited to hear from all three of you. And I'm sure everybody else is excited to learn from all of your experiences. The first question we've got today is really, we'd love to hear about an initiative or a program that you feel really proud of and that you think has changed things for LGBTQ plus employees in your organization. Perhaps start with you, Shubhra.
Thanks, Nancy. And I must say, I find this question very difficult because there is not one initiative, but so many programs and initiatives that we are proud of. But in interest of time, I'll try and summarize some of the work that we have been doing over the past couple of years, which has really helped make a difference in the organization. So first and foremost, I would really like to mention the entire progressive policies and benefits framework that we have managed to evolve over the last couple of years, from equal opportunity policies with zero tolerance to discrimination. And also, we have, in the last 2 years, introduced some really inclusive policies, be it in terms of extending the medical coverage, travel facilities to same-sex partners, supporting gender reassignment surgery, also introduced various guidelines around gender transition, inclusive language at workplace, and many curated online trainings, workshops, the intent and purpose of which is to really encourage dialogue, discussion, help people to open their minds and understand the challenges, issues, and be more inclusive as colleagues and as teams. But I think the biggest source of strength and inspiration for all of us in HSBC, whether the HR team or the senior management team, has been the very diverse, active ally groups and communities. They are the people who are really, helping us push the boundaries. They help us keep on track. They are constantly challenging, advising us, and it's really a pleasure to interact with them. And they are the ones who are really the flag bearers and who are helping us take the organization, many strides forward. So I think they are the big, if you have to ask me one, yes, policies, benefits, role models, everything is there, but I think it's the very active ally community which is really helping us move forward. They are our true ambassadors internally and externally.
That's so fantastic to hear, and actually really kind of resonates with something that we hear very often at Stonewall, is that kind of employee reference groups and allyship groups are the things that make the biggest difference to organizational transformation and inclusion in the workplace. So it's really, really fantastic to hear that confirmed from HSBC's experience. So same question for you, Samantha. What are the programs and initiatives that you feel have really made a big difference and that you're most proud of?
Sure, and if I take the liberty, I will probably state two of them, not just one. I think our mission is powering prosperity around the world, and the way we fulfill this mission is by fueling our values and supports, that our belief that every employee should be able to bring their whole self to work. See, diversity and inclusion isn't something we do, it's like who we are. That's how we actually go about doing everyday day to work. This has been like, I can actually share that this has been like a multi-year journey for us. And we are continuously on this path of learning. And as Anuj mentioned, that this is a journey, like this never ends. You just have to like raise the bar higher, and you have to try out new things, learn new things, and then just move ahead, move on, right? So we have been setting new goals for ourselves each time. And I would probably put stress on four things. So one, as Shubhra also mentioned, I think providing world-class inclusive HR policies and benefits. I think few things that I would like to call out is basically around medical coverage for same-sex partners, life insurance, nomination, even for same-sex partners, gender affirmation surgery, safe spaces for counseling of any LGBT employees who want to basically come out, or even for their loved ones as well. It's not just the employees themselves, but even for their families as well. And also gender neutral washrooms. I think we are proud to say that Intuit India is one of the sites which actually introduced gender neutral washrooms across all of the Intuit sites as well. And one of the big highlights, I think I would call that as a crystal ball moment this year that happened, was we had our first employee who went through the entire end-to-end process of gender affirmation. So this actually taught us quite a lot in terms of what you really need, right from creating awareness in terms of the entire process for the employee themselves, to even creating awareness with the employee's manager in terms of how the manager should be supporting that employee throughout the entire journey. We even had challenges in terms of making sure all our workplace systems can accurately mark the gender, just because the employee is going through a transition, right? So, and then also making sure that, and the last part was around how the co-workers and other employees within the team are also being sensitized to this whole process. I think end of the day, it worked out very well, very smoothly, and we had a lot of learning and a lot of celebration as well in terms of whatever we started off with having as a HR policy, we actually saw it to fruition coming to life. So that was one of the great moments. I think highlighting the second thing, which is more around, we have been creating a lot of channels, listening forums to build more empathy, enhancing our culture of belonging and expanding our capabilities as well. We started from focusing from top down, wherein we started creating allyship programs as well as more inclusive training programs, like leading inclusively for the leaders and managers. I think this helped, and we are proud to say that all of our managers have actually gone through this program, and we actually give them like different badges when they complete these allyship programs as well as these training programs. So that creates a lot of awareness which has been missing earlier, and this is something which we amplified this year. And one of the good examples is just because we had this first instance of an employee going through a gender reaffirmation surgery, the manager could actually support that employee very well right from beginning to end. So that was a one. I think the third one, which we are very proud of, is internally Intuit India has been running what we call as creating awareness around transgender community. So we have been holding a trans summit every year, and it's like an internal summit, but we do like invite external speakers. And last year, this year, Pride Circle was also part of it. And the whole goal of that summit is basically to share stories around this whole community, and with more specific focus around trans and non-binary inclusion. So these are the three things that I would like to highlight. But if I had to pick just one, I would say that sharing stories internally creates more power. Like, people get inspired by hearing stories, and that has been something which we learned, and we have been working to amplify it more and more.
Thank you so much, Samantha. That's like really, for me, the thing that came across so strongly is how person-centered the work that you've been doing at Intuit is, whether it's telling stories or offering counselling to people around coming out. Running through everything that you were saying there was this incredible focus on listening and learning and thinking about each other as human beings. I found it really inspirational. I feel like I learned a lot from listening to you, actually, even though we've been working for a while around workplace inclusion. So thank you so much for that. Kushal, finally we'll come to you. Kind of, what is it that you're really proud of that you've been able to do in your workplace that you think has really moved the dial for LGBTQ plus employees?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Nancy. I think I fully echo with the other two panelists, with Shubhadra and Shumanta as well. I think at BCG, the pivotal moment for us that really sort of was an inflection point was us actually launching the Ally program. So just to sort of give you a context of our starting point, a few years ago, the entire network, Pride network in India, literally consisted of 2 members and 1 ally. And, at that time, we looked at allies as this one senior person who would help us, head the network in India and sort of liaise with the leadership, etc. So I think the first inflection point, which was a paradigm shift, was just to expand that definition of senior ally to include a broader community of allies. And, we sort of had 2 issues at that point. So firstly, of course, the membership was really low, which meant there was a lack of critical mass to organize events or even to sort of, attend events and do initiatives. And the second thing also was, given the social context of India back then, this is when 377 was still alive, there was a reluctance from people who identified as LGBTQ to join a network, the Pride network, even though we offered confidential options. Because, there was always this broader trade-off that would happen in the minds of members, right? Of should I out myself versus what do I actually get by joining an employee ERG at a company, especially in a country which is relatively challenging from a social context. So I think that was our starting point. So, what we actually did is when we launched the Ally program, we opened it up for the entire broader community at BCG. And, proud to say today we are about 150 allies. And there was a whole range of initiatives that we did to get to that stage. There were email campaigns, sensitization sessions, talks with various personalities and members from other countries as well. Once we did all of this, and once the Ally program gained traction, it's just fantastic to actually see the amount of energy and enthusiasm that we've gotten from the allies, to the extent that now, we've actually reached a stage where about 12 members, 4 of whom are actually out members, and about 150 allies. And the entire Pride network in India has really taken a life of its own. And I think this has done at a profound level is, in addition to actually just getting more people to sort of run initiatives, attend events, and give us that critical mass, it's really provided a psychologically safe space and a sort of, test bed for many people who identify as LGBTQ to engage more broadly with the Pride network without actually outing yourself as LGBTQ. Because, hey, I can be an ally, which is part of a group of 150 and very openly engaged, versus before when, you would be like 1 in 2 or 3 members in the entire office running Pride. So I think psychologically, it's played a really huge role for people to engage broadly and also just to test the broader network. And secondly, so from a member's perspective, that has really helped. From an ally's perspective, there's so much energy for change. And this has really given that platform for people to be agents of change. And broadly at BCG, just the fact that we have, about 150 allies who are talking about this literally day after day, week after week, it's really created a broader culture of inclusion where, the idea of day-to-day inclusion is really getting more and more embedded in the broader community at BCG.
Thanks for that, Kushal. I feel like there are really two important strands in what you were speaking about there. And one is just the reality that all LGBTQ people face, which is kind of understanding that being out in the workplace can mean a trade-off, can mean less safety, can mean worries about promotion or position within the company. And I think it's so important to speak to that reality. It's a reality everywhere in the world, but perhaps particularly in more sort of socially conservative countries. So I really love that you spoke to that, and I also really love that you spoke to the way in which having that kind of powerful group of allies around people created psychological safety. So I think that is so important. I loved those answers. So you've all three of you painted this incredible picture of now and kind of what the last few years have looked like in terms of building LGBTQ plus inclusion. I'm really interested in hearing about what you think the future looks like. What's the future of LGBTQ plus inclusion in Indian workplaces? And maybe I'll go in the opposite direction. So I'll start with you, Kushal, so you're not always last.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nancy. Happy to start. So I think in my mind, there's two sort of new frontiers in LGBTQ D&I. So firstly, I think it's just a focus, so far, it's very common for us to look at DE&I as chunks of policy, like get insurance for same-sex couples, have gender-neutral toilets, etc. But it's once again very important. But I think the newer frontier of DE&I demands that those become table stakes and the conversation goes beyond that to start, thinking about the idea of day-to-day inclusion. So, at BCG, we have this terminology that we call 1,000 daily touch points, which is, every BCGer must be having 100, 500, 1,000 daily interactions with other people, be it with other colleagues or vendors or, clients in the course of their employment. And the idea is every single interaction can actually make or break or, foster the idea of inclusion, be it through the use of sensitive, the right pronoun usage, or using the right sense of humor, having the right LGBTQ inclusive mindset when dealing with other people. So I think that for me is a new frontier of DE&I, where, policies are already in place and we actually start looking at every single interaction as an opportunity to foster the idea of inclusion. So I think that for me is the first frontier. And the second one I'd also say is, we speak a lot about intersectionality these days. And I think that for me is the next big theme that will emerge, because, we can be LGBTQ in India. There's also a whole bunch of other identities, be it related to socioeconomic status, caste, religion, etc. A lot of which can also identify as minorities, etc. So how does DE&I actually take a more holistic approach to approaching each individual as what we call the segment of one lens? How do we look at each individual, because their experiences are very unique, which may sort of surpass not just sexual and gender identities, but also have other dimensions to it as well. So this, how does an ERG, or multiple ERGs work together to look at individuals as an entire being with a very unique lived experiences that spans across multiple identities? I think that these two for me are the next two big frontiers in DE&I.
I love both of those thoughts, and I especially kind of really endorse the idea of kind of practical intersectionality. And definitely what we see sometimes is in kind of larger organizations, really fantastic transformational work being done across ERGs that represent different identity groups, that's really trying to speak to kind of what are the common experiences of kind of minoritized group within the workplace, but also what does it feel like to be LGBTQ plus disabled person? What does it feel like to be an LGBTQ woman? These sorts of things. I really think that that's right, that understanding the whole person and understanding kind of how we can collaborate for a kind of broader kind of inclusivity is a big part of what comes next for this agenda. So So Samantha, really interested in hearing your thoughts. We've heard about now what happens next. What are the next big challenges and the next big opportunities in LGBTQ plus inclusion?
Yeah, and I do agree with what Kushal mentioned. I think most of our current approach focusing around the entire DEI agenda has been one. I would say it has been relatively newer. It's been evolved over the last probably 10-15 years, not beyond that. So most of these things that I would probably say is kind of traditional in nature. What we are seeing now, and especially it has amplified with the entire pandemic that has come in over the last 18 months, is we are seeing a generational shift in terms of how the workplace culture is evolving. One is we are seeing more and more millennials who are actually joining the workforce. And the other thing that we are seeing is in their mindset and attitude in terms of how they approach this whole topic. Like, I'll share my own personal story. My daughter, she's a teenager. She is more aware around this whole topic, LGBTQ, than me. I feel ashamed to say this, but that's the truth. Primarily because I myself haven't been exposed to these kind of discussions, these kind of topics during my own early career, right? What we are seeing as a shift now is people who are joining the workforce now from, let's say, the university and campus, they are more aware, they are more inclusive in their mindset, right? So some of these, as Kushal mentioned, some of these things that we have been traditionally doing over the last few years, these are like table stakes. You have to do this. If you don't do this, you are in trouble. But if you do this, no one will say and come and say that, hey, you have done a good job. So first and foremost thing that I feel that will actually need all organizations to put into a place in terms of how to create that culture of belonging. And especially in this hybrid kind of a world, which makes it even more difficult, how do you go about creating a culture which is more grassroots level? And it need not be top down. The culture of belonging, the culture of diversity, inclusion has to come from the bottom, the grassroots level, from the workflows, from each and every employee themselves. So subtle little things like I can share, like sharing pronouns. It seems like a small thing, but it has a huge impact, especially with people who are in the workplace right now, but they are not able to come out just because they don't feel that I'm not yet ready, or probably my coworkers will not accept me if I actually come out, right? Now, these are some of the things which I feel are more evolving and foundational in nature. And these small things will actually add up to creating like a cultural mindset shift that will be needed. And in order to make this happen, I think the first and foremost thing every organization has to do is creating this, the leadership bandwidth to realize the importance of this. So leadership plays a very big role in creating this kind of a culture of belonging. So there should be a lot of effort in measuring how we are creating diversity, how we are, like in Intuit, we have a score at an organization level wherein we measure our belonging score. And each and every leader has their own belonging score. So this kind of enforces a kind of a rigor as well as some kind of a mindset in terms of, okay, what are the things that I can do at my own personal level, at my own team level, which helps in amplifying this culture of belonging. So basically the entire importance of creating more leadership awareness, more leadership training, specifically around leading inclusively is very, very important. And we just have to figure out newer and different ways of amplifying this further. I think the second one, which is again more important, is more around like strengthening the employee resource groups, which we call as. And I always feel that instead of calling them as ERGs, we should now start calling them as business resource groups, because they are not just employee resource groups. The work that they are doing is actually help further the business. So how can we give more power to these core groups within, so that they can actually come out with newer ideas? How can we equip them with all the tools and processes wherein they can go ahead and propose new policies, new benefits, new programs, new initiatives, and also support them throughout the entire journey? So this is the second thing which I feel can be amplified and which can help us accelerate this whole journey. And the third one, which I strongly believe that stories are very powerful. we haven't heard all the stories from everyone in the workplace. So how can we create an environment wherein each and everyone can feel that, hey, I should go ahead and share my story, whatever that story is, whether it's an ally story, or whether it's a coming out story, or whether it is not coming out story as well. I think all kinds of stories should be encouraged and shared. And how do we create a platform wherein we can share more of these and amplify this? I think these are the three things that I would call out.
I love so much of what you said there. I'm really struck by the idea of leaders being accountable for creating a culture of belonging. And I think that really connects through to the storytelling you were pointing to. But I was also super interested in the point you were making about generational difference. So I work with a lot of Generation Z, not even millennials, even younger. I've got a lot of young colleagues. And I feel like I learn so much from them. And I wonder about intergenerational exchange within workplaces. You know, people that are in the early parts of their career have got a lot to learn about business, about work, but also they've got a lot to teach about culture, about inclusion. And I wonder about kind of intergenerational exchange around these issues as well, because it's something I know that I learn from a lot. So finally, Shubhra, coming to you, what does the future look like for LGBTQ plus inclusion from your perspective?
Thanks, Nancy. So honestly, last couple of years, we have been quite inward looking because we wanted to get our policies, processes, culture right. We wanted to ensure we have the right training, awareness, and most importantly, establish a strong ally network. Today, we have 1,000+ allies in HSBC India. However, now that we have got the foundations right, what we are as a next stage, what we really want to do, and already started fair bit of work around that, is to reach outside the organization into the communities, families. Over the last couple of years, we have gained a lot of experience. We have gained a lot of expertise. We have internal resources like our counseling services. How do we extend this help to make a difference in the broader community is the first and foremost thing that we really are starting to explore. The second bit would be we want to tie up more with NGOs and educational institutes. We have a very, very strong ally network, people who are very active and engaged. How do we leverage on their expertise to reach out to young students, people who are in colleges, ensure that they become the role models, they create the community outreach. We have developed a plethora of training, various online, offline resources. I think we have the expertise. Now it's a matter of bridging the gap, making a difference in the wider community, because I think that's what is really going to help us now spread the message far and wide, rather than just within our organization, within siloed cities or communities that we operate in. And the last bit that we are also exploring is, right now the focus has been on our employees. We are also looking at our, the contract staff, vendors, because that's something which we had not really explored, and that's where we want to kind of now engage and start the dialogue with the vendors, create the education, because some of our vendors have housekeeping or the security or the maintenance staff, but we have not really gone there, and that's what we want to start doing. And of course, internally, more or less our focus was on the younger workforce at a junior and mid management. We want to now also increase the focus on hiring, developing, and career progression for senior levels in the C-suite. So those are some of the top 2 or 3 agenda items for us that we are now working through.
I'm I really love the theme around extension in what you were talking about, kind of extending the focus upwards all the way to the C-suite, outwards to vendors, outwards to communities. I love the kind of purpose and ambition in what you're talking about there. And I think that definitely would love to kind of endorse the idea that by companies working with NGOs, particularly locally, working with NGOs in their kind of direct environment around LGBTQ plus inclusion can be really transformative. And at Stonewall, we've produced kind of a report about how companies can do a really great job of partnering in their communities with NGOs to do that extension and to be part of transformation beyond the doors of the workplace. So fantastic answers from all three of you. I loved that. So maybe a more personal question for each of you. Samantha, I'll start with you because I'm trying to move our order around. And it's what inspired you to get involved? How did you end up getting involved in the agenda of LGBTQ plus inclusion in the workplace?
Yeah, I think I just gotten involved more on a very serious note just 3 years back. And it was all due to my daughter. It was in 2018 when both me and my daughter were having breakfast, and the famous day in September when the verdict from Supreme Court came out, decriminalizing the all consensual sex amongst adults. I think my daughter asked a very innocent question to me, seeking for an answer. She just read the newspaper and said that why is this even criminal? And I seriously couldn't answer that. And that was more like a starting point for me to say that, hey, I think everyone can bring a change. Everyone can do something to bring a change. And especially for me, and given that I am in a leadership position, I have that responsibility to basically go ahead and start doing something. And that's when kind of inspired me to take an active role. Like earlier, I was taking a very passive role, but that incident, that one fine morning, spurred me to basically take that active role out here. So I would probably say I have been pretty late in this journey, but I am determined to continue further.
Good job, your daughter. That's fantastic. Kajol, how did you get involved in LGBTQ plus inclusion?
So for me, the topic is one that I'm personally very passionate about. So I identify with the LGBTQ community. And when I sort of joined BCG 7 years ago, when I heard about the network, my first sort of steps in my coming out journey were within BCG as an organization, and Pride at BCG played a huge role in that sort of journey. And I think when I started off in India and gradually over time, I've had multiple milestones coming out. When I'm finally, proud and able to say this out loud, I've just realized the importance or the profound impact that an organization can play at a very personal level. And that's why not just, today that I'm out, right? And the fact that I'm actually shaping BCG's global LGBTQ D&I strategy, all of this has been possible. All of this would actually be unimaginable 2 years ago. I think just stemming from a personal case for seeing utility for this and identifying with the community have been the biggest drivers for me. And I really wish, to sort of create similar spaces for other people as well, to, in a way give back and in a way just help, because the way I was helped when I was early on in my journey. So I think, that's how I would answer that question.
It's how I ended up with my job too. So I really resonate with that. Shubhra, how did you get involved? What inspired you to get involved in this agenda?
So Nancy, for me, it has been a long evolution. I got involved in the entire D&I agenda because I was interested in what's happening in the gender space. 8-9 years back, I think that's probably the only thing that we were focusing, talking about, had targets around. But as I started getting more deeply involved, that's when I started realizing that it's not gender. What we really are talking about are inclusion. What we're talking about, the different demographics, different people, the different stories that we hear as we start working on this entire D&I space. And that's where we started establishing a focus on persons with disability, different generations, LGBT plus. So it's now a thriving D&I agenda for us. But yes, my genesis was out of personal selfish interest in the gender agenda, but it's evolved as we have kind of understood the different dimensions and understood what being a truly inclusive organization means, and that's what my journey has been.
I've got a personal interest in the gender agenda as well, so I'm right there with you. So we've got a few minutes left, and I just wanted to ask a question from the audience, which is really about what are the tips, the pointers to moving from these fantastic ideas into action, into execution? How do people get moving? And maybe I'll start with Kushal.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think there's two ways to look at it. Typically what we've noticed is D&I always starts as a grassroots movement. So my big advice would be, to have enthusiastic people who want to make change, and then to actually sort of get at least one senior ally, who has enough pull in the organization, who has access to the highest levels of leadership, and to start sort of, have someone senior own the agenda. I think that is very important, because that everything, including resourcing, budgeting, all of these things are very important conversations to have, and they can be fundamental to actually starting or kicking off a D&I journey. So just knowing that someone from leadership has your back to do whatever you sort of want to do in terms of initiatives, that is very important. So I think my starting point would just be find a senior ally and a sponsor, and then be the enthusiastic agent of change who have their back covered already by leadership.
We see that so much in organizations, the value of a senior sponsor who's really committed. Samantha, how would you add to that? What are some good top tips for getting moving and for maybe progressing in the D&I journey?
I think absolutely. I think the first and foremost, as Kushal mentioned, is to have a small core group of passionate people. I would like to add the word passionate, because without passion, you won't be able to drive things for long. It has to be a durable and sustainable kind of a effort all the year round, and even a multi-year journey as well. In addition, I would probably say that have very focused goals. Start with goals, and don't worry about what those goals are going to be. You just figure out yourself in terms of what is the goal that you would like to achieve, and then start breaking down those goals into more like actionable things which you can start doing and start measuring them. I think only when you put in some goals and start measuring them by doing something month over month, quarter over quarter, within our year, you will realize that, oh, okay, we have come quite along in that whole journey. So having some goals and kind of making it actionable and also measuring them periodically, that is something which I would advise if you're just starting afresh.
So we've got a group of passionate people, we've got a senior sponsor that's backing them all the way, we've got some goals that are measurable and give us steps in front of us. Shubhra, it's not very fair to come to you last, but is there anything else that you would add to that fantastic recipe for getting things moving in practice?
I think, Nancy, one important thing is not think that, okay, we have released one policy, we have introduced one training program, our job is done. I think the key is to continuously understand, stay in touch with the allies and communities and understand what are the evolving needs, what is it that is on top of their mind right now, what are some of the challenges. For example, the COVID situation, how is it that we can go out and help them? I think that's what will keep it dynamic and really relevant. Otherwise, sometimes you feel, okay, 3 policies done, 2 training programs, this year's job is done, but that's not the ground reality. That's how we can make a difference.
I love that the 3 of you together have laid this fantastic roadmap. So find your passionate people, find your senior sponsor, set some achievable, measurable goals, and keep learning and keep evolving with evolving needs. I think that is just the best prescription for how to start to make a difference in the workplace that I've heard. So we're coming to the end of our time together, and I just really want to thank you. So Shubhra, Samantha, Kushal, it has been an enormous pleasure talking to you, and most of all, an enormous pleasure listening to you. And I hope that the colleagues who've joined us on the call have found you as inspirational as I have. It's been wonderful to spend some time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shubhra. Thank you, Sumanta and Kushal, for sharing your perspective and how your organization is so committed and determined towards LGBT plus inclusion. Also, thank you, Nancy, for moderating it so brilliantly. With that, I would like to invite our next guest speaker, Radhika Piramal, Vice Chair VIP and Co-Chair FICCI Task Force on D&I, to shed some lights and thoughts on Indian leadership for LGBT plus inclusion. Over to you, Radhika.
Hello, everybody. And thank you so much for having me here. Wow, what an inspirational panel that just was. I really, really enjoyed it and I learned so much. I just want to start with that. The topic, is titled for me as leadership. And I think in this instance, actually, it's an incorrect title, because here I'm a student and VIP is very much on its journey. So, in fact, I would like to address my talk mostly to the other companies in the bronze category, or even those brave companies that participated in the index but then did not meet the minimum threshold. Because the reason I just call out these is because there's an intention, and then for whatever reason, the intention has not come, the outcome has not come as much as the original intention, because if there was no intention, then, you would not have participated in the survey to begin with. So I really want to address sort of this group of people and share my story so far, and mostly also really acknowledge and appreciate the silver and the gold medalists and the panel that came before, because not as a leader, as a student, I have learned and got some very clear guidelines on what we could do at VIP for the year ahead. Let me start with why I think VIP was bronze. I have to say that on a contextual level, COVID really did have an impact, because instead of being a relatively well-growing company who was hiring regularly, we in fact became a company that shrunk in size, because luggage is very much related to travel and weddings, and all of that was really badly affected in COVID. So that was one big reason, because a lot of the actions we would like to take when it comes to diversity and inclusion, it's easier to change when hiring than to perhaps change the existing status quo. So that is one reality, and one that I hope will change now that the third wave has not materialized, and we're looking forward to growing again. The second reason I say why did we get a bronze, because I have really reflected on this, is I would say the policies are relatively easy to achieve. So what a lot of people in the previous panels call as, the table stakes, the hygiene level, like without this, then where are you? You don't even have the intention. Those were relatively easier, because for that you needed leadership and you needed HR, but you did not necessarily need the buy-in of a majority of people across functions, locations, departments. Where we found it harder is recruitment, and then retention, and then promotion. And of course, recruitment, I explained, was because of the COVID hiring, but in general in recruitment, how to remove biases from interviews. And then in terms of retention and promotion, suppose one can even get past the recruitment issue and you get some people in, how in fact to create that safe, happy space of belonging. Those are I'm being very open in this group, since we are all here to learn and share from each other. I found that these have been the harder elements at VIP, because they're related to culture across people, and change across people is harder, as we all know, than changing a few, an HR head or an MD. So what is the way forward for me at VIP? I think definitely in the year looking forward, we would like to move up from bronze to silver, and then on silver on to gold. There are some amazing Indian companies that we can look up to. So the path is quite clear. Of course, we have the Lilith Group. We also have Godrej, HUL, so many other people, and plus everybody who spoke just before me, where I could learn so much. So the path is clear, and we have to take all the steps discussed. So just a couple of things that I have thought of myself. One is when we're doing inclusion, I think we can easily do inclusion for all, simultaneously rather than approaching things in a linear fashion. Like, for example, women first, and then LGBTQ, and then within LGBTQ, not saving the T for the end, people with disabilities. Because if you're changing somebody's mind using stories, it can happen at the same time. And that's something, because for me, gender is also very important. And I think we can do all of these things together. The third, the second tip I have is to really use POSH well. Use it as a tool to create more inclusive and advocacy-oriented trainings that discuss sensitivity, gender inclusion, because using POSH actually, from a very practical perspective, can help with resource and budgeting. And these are constraints for some companies, especially in COVID times. The third thing is, I think, the need for allies. And it may sound very ironic for me to say this, but even a leader needs allies. So, for example, in VIP, I have been out, I think, to the sort of public for about 10 years in the media. But I would say that our D&I journey realistically, meaningfully started about 6 or 7 years ago. And I found that, and it's taken a long time. And one of the reasons is because I find that it's most effective if I can find people at 3 levels. So that, for me, the sponsor is in fact lesbian. That's the senior leadership. I'm the senior sponsor. I'm lesbian and proud to be out and work towards this. But I need allies in HR. And then also I need allies across the business units, across all levels. So I think working at those 3 levels simultaneously has been my personal challenge, especially in the face of business adversity, but one that I'm determined to stay on with, using all the passion and grit and determination that these journeys lead. I believe they are not only multi-year, but possibly multi-decade efforts, but the path ahead is clear. And so if we find those passionate people in our organizations, then we can make it happen. If there are any questions at this time, I would love to take them. Otherwise, I would like to hand over to the next speaker, where I look forward to learning more on my personal and VIP's journey towards diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Radhika, for such great thoughts. I'm glad to learn how bright and welcoming Indian landscape looks like for LGBT plus inclusion. Moving ahead to next and final segment, it's time to hear from the change makers from our silver and bronze employers on solid foundation. And our esteemed panelists are Sneha Arora, Vice President Human Capital, Mintra; Kshitija Bhandari, Senior HR Business Partner and Co-Chair Pride ERG, Northern Trust; Tanvi Rohatgi, Director People, ABN BAS. And the discussion will be moderated by Anubhuti Banerjee, Manager Analytics, Tata Steel. The stage is all yours, Anubhuti.
Hi, and a very good afternoon, everyone. It has been such an enlightening session, such a lively session, and it has been such a privilege to be hearing all these wonderful perspectives of the panels before, the gold category winners, and also just to hear Radhika talk about how determined she is about, the Indian leadership coming together and finally trying to build that very strong foundation that is needed. And that is exactly the term that we are using for this session, which we call strong foundations, because you cannot build a building. Inclusion and belonging is something that cannot be built overnight. I can talk about it from my own personal experience. I have started the employee resource group, the LGBTQ employee resource group called Wings at Tata Steel. It was one of the first in the Indian manufacturing segment. We started way back before the Section 377 was decriminalized. We also came out with some fantastic policies, and last year we were recognized by the IWEI as a silver category, and this year Tata Steel has been recognized in the gold category, which is a real joy to see, but also talks about how it has been a journey for us and how we put foundational steps down the way, and only then could build up to this position. So with that, I would like to bring on the speakers today. So let me start with Ms. Tanvi Rohatgi, who is Director of People at ABNBev. And let us just talk about something small, like what small steps do you think, Tanvi, have let your organization come to this level, come to this playing field where you wanted to participate in this esteemed award session, as well as rank us against all the India inclusive employers? So Tanvi, can you just share some examples of the foundations that you've set at your organization?
Definitely, Anubhuti. Thank you so much. And firstly, I just wanted to extend a big thank you for organizing this. It is indeed an honor to be a part of such an interesting and esteemed panel. So to answer your question, Anubhuti, at AB InBev, we have always been very, very strongly committed to diversity and inclusion. And it's not just starting from the HR team or the people team, we extend it across the value chain. And a very interesting example is we don't believe in doing things only from our function. We in fact make it a company-wide effort. So just to share an example, last year we started a diversity and inclusion committee, and we had a very good representation of senior management participating in it. And from there, this idea of inclusion precedes diversity began, and we started thinking and implementing very, I would say, noble ideas and policies. So just to give you an example, for example, we started with the paternity leave extension, which means that we don't only have the responsibility of nurturing a child limited to women, it also extends to the males. And we had extended it to 4 weeks with additional 1 year spread over the remaining year. And not only that, we actually extended this to even the LGBT plus. We launched something called adoption leave. So we extended our current parental leave policy to support our LGBTQ plus colleagues, which means they can now avail 3 months of continuous leave for adoption. That was something first of in its kind in the industry we are at. And not only this, we also said, why is the insurance only limited to a certain section of the society? So we even made it more inclusive. In fact, we extended our insurance cover to have the same sex partners also included versus the normal norm we have. So these are just some examples, Anubhuti, to share how we came about with some policies. But I think the key point in the journey that you were talking about and the organization impact, I think if you have the effort being driven only by one function, you will have only limited success. Until and unless you involve the entire organization into it, it would become a challenge. So that's where I'll leave my inputs.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. That was such a insightful point that you made. And also another thing that really struck me is that all these small journeys start from this belief that we have to think about inclusion. And then we find all these intersections in which if we are trying to include one category of people, we find that, these changes are automatically going to be beneficial for some other people, and we can just onboard them. And that is how the thinking grows and we become more and more inclusive. So such a wonderful job there. Next, let me move to Ms. Kshitija Bhandari, who is a senior HR business partner as well as lead of the Pride ERG at Northern Trust. Kshitija, what do you think were the steps at Northern Trust that have really got you here? I was very, personally very privileged to be part of launch of a transgender inclusion policy that Northern Trust actually championed. So some initiatives like that and others, I'm sure you can share with us, which have really got you to this stage of a very strong foundation of LGBTQ inclusion.
Thanks, Anubhuti. My name is Kshitija. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And like you said, I hold dual roles. What that doesn't explain is also I'm part of the community. I identify as bisexual. And my coming out journey happened while I was in Northern Trust. Right? In terms of the journey that we have made, let's be very clear. We started this journey only in 2017. So we are very young in the journey at this point in time. And when I say we started in 2017, we started in India in 2017. We've been advocates and very active advocates for LGBT community and all forms of inclusion globally for many decades. We're a 130-year-old company. And for the last 50 years, I think we've been active through Stonewall, through various partners globally in forwarding this agenda. When we started in India, we went to basics, right? And since you asked what were the strong foundation, our foundation was basics. The language of inclusion. I loved what Tanvi said, inclusion precedes diversity. And many a times we forget that, right? We start focusing on diversity and hiring more people with diverse backgrounds into the firm without really thinking through what are we going to do once they're through the door. And what we did was in 2017, even before we started a formal chapter of Pride, ERG, and we call them Business Resource Councils in Northern Trust, we sensitized managers on the language of what is gender, what is sex, what is gender identity, what does inclusion even mean, LGBT, what are these terms, what do they stand for, what are the plus, what is the Q, and so on and so forth. And we did a very simple exercise in that. We did a 1-minute exercise where we said, pair up, and for the next 1 minute, you're going to have a conversation with your partner about somebody important in your life. The only rule is you will invert their pronouns. So if this is a male person, identify them as she, right? And have that conversation, and vice versa, right? And we use the binary norm because that was the most familiar for people. And that had a huge impact. We saw emotions shifting for people the moment that exercise happened. Everybody said, this is very difficult. And we said, imagine this, any person who walks in from the LGBT community, every time you ask them a simple question, how was your weekend? Struggles with this, right? It's as simple as that. It's as basic as that. We covered 800 managers over a period of 6 months. And I have to give credit to Melina, who's our DEI head, who did this personally, ran every single session herself. And once we had the managers signed in to the idea to say, this is something that is important. There is a business case, there is productivity, and there's enough research on performance, productivity, motivation, and all of that in the industry. But this matters personally. Policies, and we heard in the previous session, policies are table stakes, right? All our policies are gender neutral. We have adoption policy, parental leave for fathers as well as for moms. We have gender reassignment surgeries. We have same-sex partner coverage for medical, including psychological, and that's for all partners, by the way. Psychological OPDs, psychiatric help that you may need, mental health that you support that you may need. You have it for HIV, AIDS, you have it for infertility treatments, and so on and so forth, right? So we have a whole scope that we cover. Our JDs have been made gender neutral. Our hiring, our presence in the marketplace is very clear. But the way we divided our work was people, marketplace, culture. Right? And when we started with culture to say, how do we make sure that people understand this is important? And our senior leaders are bought into the idea and understand why we're trying to do it. They also role model behaviors. So our first Pride BRG lead is actually the India CEO at this time, Veda. Some of you may have heard on various panels. She led from the front, and the leaders shared stories of why they were being part of these ERGs. What's their personal story? And that essentially sent a message to say, we care not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it personally matters to us. And that shifted the culture for us in many, many ways. The second around people, again, a lot of panelists in the previous session talked about it. Passionate people who really care about it form our ERG, and our ERG was formally launched in 2018. And the work that we've done since then is, so I'm privileged because a lot of our ERG members and BRC members are actually millennials. They know a lot more than any of us leads, right? We have a senior sponsor who sits on the executive team who makes sure we have the right resources, we have the right decision rights, and we have representation in the forums where those decisions are getting made. And that's critical, right? The third thing that I will highlight is just the fact that we have to start small, but we have to complete the circle. And when I say that, what I mean is take one piece. So if we say we are going to create an environment where people feel safe, to reveal their identity or to come into us, even if they don't want to come out. When they join us, they join knowing I will get a safe working place. Pick that up as an agenda and then think through, what does it mean for policy? What does it mean for our processes? What does it mean for our hiring team? What does it mean for our leadership? What kind of conversations do we need to have in the workplace so that this doesn't seem odd? Nobody feels pressure to come out and nobody feels odd because they are in the closet, right? And then just go at it. Do not judge your actions by the size of it. Somebody talked about usage of pronouns. Last year, we picked up the trans inclusion agenda as our biggest theme, right? And we said, what is the one thing that we can do that will have the maximum impact? We said declaration of pronouns. And we got a go-ahead globally to say we can include our pronouns in our emails. We then followed it up, and that was our big win for the year. We then followed it up with conversations talking about why pronouns are important, right? Why does it even matter? Why do I have to display it? To having a parenting workshop where we talk about young parents who comprise our workforce, to talk about what if your child wants to do it? How do you educate your children about this, right? Young professionals, how do you declare this during a mentoring relationship? And how do you take advantage of a mentoring relationship around this? And so on and so forth. So a multitude of small steps taken thoughtfully with a personal connect, right, is what leads to strong foundation. The last bit I will say, this is not a one-day work. This is every single day. So one of the things we've done very well is we've shown up to this agenda every single day, not just in the month of June, right, celebrating Pride, but every single day we think about it to say, today, what can we do? And what does our community need to make this place safer, more inclusive, and increase the sense of belonging that people have? Sorry, Anubhuti, long answer, but something.
Thank you, Kshitija. What a wonderful answer. And you know, that really is the playbook of inclusion and setting foundations for inclusion. And that is really wonderful. I think one point that really stuck out to me is that, you know, having personal stakes in it always makes it a bit more, you know, stronger for all of us. And, you know, that is something that they say that, you know, if, unless you have skin in the game, unless you have some part of yourself, some part of your own, you know, belief system that believes in it, I don't think the kind of changes that we want can really be, you know, as impactful or as passionate as we really want to. And I'm really wonderful, you know, I'm really wonderfully surprised to know that, you know, even people at the top, like you mentioned, took this up as a personal agenda, as a personal, you know, vendetta, that, you know, we really want to make it inclusive. And it's really wonderful to see how far Northern Trust has come, especially in India. Moving next to Sneha. Sneha is VP of Human Capital at Myntra, and Sneha also I've had the you know, privilege of being part of a panel before. But Sneha, coming to you, coming from an Indian company and a startup at that, especially something that you know, has a connect with a lot of millennials, with a lot of, you know, culture in general, because I would say, you know, companies like Myntra drive the culture in general. How have you found it? You know, how has your experience been on taking these small steps of inclusion, bringing people together, and, you know, really making that difference at Myntra, at your work?
Thanks, Anubhuti. First of all, wonderful to be here and hear from Kshitija, Tanvi about all the great things that are happening in the corporate today. I think organizations really can make a lot of difference, with especially in the context of the LGBT plus inclusion topic, right? Given that you know, it's a lot of awareness that really comes from corporates as well today. So I would say that we are in some small way shaping the culture around us from a societal standpoint as well. I think at Myntra, the journey has been very, very satisfying and surprisingly so, because, you know, 2 years back when we started, we literally started from scratch to say that, you know, can we start looking at this? I think what has helped us is that what Tanvi said, right? Diversity is a given today, right? It's inclusion that we really need to work towards, and I'm gonna take that as a quote. So I think for us, the appreciation of saying that, look, we have a diverse customer base out there, right? And our organization needs to reflect that diversity for us to be able to understand how do we serve our customers better, has been the mindset, and that's what we've kind of worked with as well in terms of the culture that we wanted to create around inclusion. Yeah, so I think couple of things which helped us. I think one, the whole listening part of it, right? To assume what somebody needs is also, you can never really step into somebody's shoes or their experiences. Yeah, so that's where we really started that, let's open up these listening channels, let's get the pulse from many, many unique people that we have, right? And then you have these intersections as well. There may be, millennial who is, who belongs to the community, or there may be a female who's a part of, who's a person with disability, for example, right? So there are these intersectionalities as well, which makes it very, very unique from a people's standpoint. So that's where we started. And I think over a period of time, we started co-creating with people as well, right? So a lot of our policies, for example, the medical insurance for same-sex partners, live-in partners, wedding leaves for everybody, irrespective of whoever you are. I know while, on the legal front, there's still, we're not there as a country, but we've tried to open up all of these policies as much as we can from an inclusion standpoint. Yeah, gender reaffirmation surgeries, we've done some of those pieces to make it inclusive, and some of it came from our employees itself that, okay, look, let's do this, let's start talking the language, let's start indicating support from a policy framework standpoint. And the second thing we have done is that we've tried to keep policies as open as possible. So to give an example, when we were talking about a leave policy, we made it unlimited leaves. Yeah, so you can take leaves for whatever reason, right? We're not trying to say it should be wellness, it could be emotional wellness, it could be family care, for example, if you have to take care of your partner, spouse, your children, your in-laws, whoever, right? So we've tried to make it as open as we can from a policy standpoint so that everybody is unique and they can just use it for whatever they need it to. Then other pieces that we've done is also what Kshitija was mentioning around the leadership part of it. Yeah, so it's very, very important that the tone is set from the top. And for us, our leaders ended up owning it. And that really helped in terms of, driving overall inclusion as a priority as well. Our leaders participated very actively as well in terms of, whether it was an event or whether it was just being a spokesperson inside, outside. So I think that really helped us as well. And what we also realized was that, it's easy as an HR department to sit and say, okay, we'll make the greatest policies, but unless the experience translates on the ground, it doesn't really matter. So what we did was, for all our managers, right? I mean, your day-to-day interaction with your manager really defines culture for you. That's your organization. That's your world in a lot of ways. So we trained all our managers. We did leading with empathy sessions with them to make sure that the perspective in terms of how do you deal with unique people with their unique needs and how do you develop an appreciation for that. We did that as well with our managers to help set the culture and the tone from an inclusion standpoint also. And the larger awareness piece, of course, I think this is one topic that nobody can drive on their own. You can't leave it to leaders. HR can't do it. You can't have a D&I committee. Everybody has to come together to create that. Yeah. So how do you then sensitize everybody that, look, there is more to this? So we started driving those unconscious bias sessions as well. We're a little early in the journey, but we're making progress there in terms of that overall sensitization. Of course, backed with very good grievance mechanisms as well, right? You can't preach one thing and then when it comes to it, not act on it. And the last thing which really helped us is that I think the internal and external narrative needs to be the same. Yeah, so we've been very conscious in terms of especially LGBT plus inclusion, where we have models from the community where we consciously have them on our platform as well, and then we consciously leverage them on the social media part of it as well. Because I think if employees see you talking the same language outside, inside, and outside as well, when we post something, we do get mixed reactions, yeah. And the stand that you take as an employer, as a brand at that point of time really defines how serious you are about something. So I think that's really helped us set the tone also. And we were actually, in 2015, we had an ad which featured a lesbian couple, and that was, again, as a brand, putting it out there to say that, look, this is something that we believe in, and this is something that we want to support. So we've done that piece as well as a consumer-facing brand, not just from an internal standpoint. So that the narrative of somebody who's in our organization, when there is consistency, we're not saying and doing something different. We are doing what we believe in externally, internally, and being very open about it. So that's been our journey. Yeah, long answer to your question, Anubhuti. But I think this is one topic where it does take a lot of persistence. It does take a lot of perseverance. And then it's also, I think, trying few things. Some work, some don't work. Yeah, and I think for us, the good thing has also been that I think the Pride Circle has really helped, right? And we have leveraged a lot of people outside from the community who are advocates, allies. So we've really taken help from all to kind of get to this point. And that's what, if anybody is planning to start on this journey, I would advise that there is just so much knowledge out there. People have tried different things, and that may be a good place to start in terms of just picking up things and seeing what works for you. And then what Kshitija said, just start somewhere. Yeah, start small, and then go from there and just hang in there.
Thank you, Sneha. Yes, and it's wonderful to hear so much passion about inclusion and in these long answers, as you say. It is so wonderful to see. But something that really stuck out to me, one, is that how important it is for us to understand that our customer base is diverse, and hence if we are not diverse, if our management, if our people, if our our brand projections are not diverse, it's not going to work. And that's really how we must look at it, is that the diversity is a given. Inclusion is what we have to make sure, because inclusion is a two-way street. If we include more people, different people, the different people who would be our customers would include us in their choices. I think that is something that we should know and have very strongly in our minds, that it is a business decision that we are making. Another thing that really stuck out to me is that how this journey cannot be driven by a particular department alone. Quite often we see that just an HR department keeps pushing for changes, but unless we are actually listening to all the people who belong to the community, and not just the community here, meaning the LGBTQ, but all the intersections that lie, and unless we have a constant and a dynamic process of listening to what is it exactly that is needed. The people that we have recruited, are they not getting promotions, or is it that there is something that we introduced with a good intention, but ultimately it is something that is probably not benefiting people? I think unless we have these listening mechanisms, we're never going to have a really belonging or a real inclusive workplace. So that is something that I gained from all three of you. I'll come to a short question which I ask all three of you, and I'll start with Tanvi once again. Tanvi, what I want to know is that this has been, it's a victory to be recognized at such a wonderful forum and even to participate in one. But apart from this, what one small victory in the past year would you say in inclusion, in LGBTQ inclusion, that comes to your mind that you would really like to highlight? And also perhaps you can also run through how the experience of participating in this survey and in this the whole equality index, how has it been for you? Has it been a learning for you as well, or has it been something that you would really like to take part in for the years to come? Really, if you could share some of your thoughts, Tanvi.
Definitely, Anubhuti. I think this is just the start, being honest. And it goes without saying that this journey is here to stay. You have asked a very good question, Anubhuti. Maybe I'll just reflect on one of the examples we did, which helped in diversity, but as I said, inclusion precedes diversity, and we would like to extend it. So, the industry we belong to in AB and Beverages, the beer industry, and it has, in the context we are in, sometimes it has some taboo and challenges. And what we took on us was to come up with the biggest brewery, which will be run by females majorly. And that was, trust me, not at all an easy dream or ambition to set, especially, as I said, the context we are in India. Simple and very thinkable in global context, but not in India. And what we did was, as Sneha was saying, policies are easy to make and dreams are easy to make, but how to actually implement it? We went and we started educating the community. We had chats with the parents, we had chats with the educational institutes, and we changed that mindset. And that's how the dream, which was not anywhere close to belief in 2019 actually became a reality in 2021. Now I'm just extending that best practice to say what we learned in that one was not easy, but we will extend that again to this forum in terms of how do we extend it to LGBTQ+, how do we extend it to other facets of the community. I'm not sure if there's anything that you would like to specifically reflect on, Anubhuti or Kshitija or Sneha, because honestly, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Sneha and Kshitija. So also to answer your question, whether we win or not, I think just coming to these forums and it's a box of all great ideas that I'm taking away from here for sure.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Tanvi. Same question again to, just a minute. Yeah, same question again to Shweta now, that what was your experience? How, and also one victory that you have had in Northern Trust that you'd like to share with us? Kshitija, sorry.
No worries at all. So it's difficult to choose one, right? But I'll choose an overarching theme. Like I mentioned, we started our journey only in 2017, so we are relatively new. And what stands out to me is the pace at which we've made this journey of allyship, right? And if I was to just thematize what we are trying to do in Northern Trust, we are trying to create larger and larger circles of allyship. And what does allyship mean for us? A couple of things. One, when you see a person, you see a human being. You do not just see visible and non-visible, invisible demarcations, what makes them different. You see the commonality, right? The second thing that allyship means for us is just because it's unknown does not mean it's dangerous, right? When you meet an unknown, it fosters curiosity in you, not fear. Right? And the third is, my personal belief is corporates are the new villages. Earlier, we would learn a lot from our immediate families, our immediate communities, and from the village or the native place, as we call it in India, that we belong to. Today, a lot of that learning happens in the corporate environment that you're in. And if we are the new village, then we are responsible for making sure that people who interface with us leave a little bit richer, having understood how to interact. A lot of people, and again, my belief in humanness is a lot of people do not act with bias because they want to. They act with bias because they don't know any better and they don't have alternate options. So making sure that they're aware and making sure that they're given a safe place where they can practice in small actions, right? How to be more inclusive. What do I do? For a lot of people, when we started this journey, they said, we've never thought about it. And I've had multitude of these conversations with my own mother, right? Over the last 20 years, it's like, I've never heard of it. This is absolutely new. And I think the parental fear of saying, oh my God, this is unsafe. How are you going to navigate the environment if you declare yourself to be out? To me, an ideal state is when nobody has to come out. Let's be clear, heterosexual people do not come out. They do not one day go and declare to anybody, you know what, I am attracted to a person of the opposite gender, right? And as humans, we shouldn't have to. So the journey of allyship, we won the Out and Equal Outie Award for our ERG last year in the Out and Equal Summit, the Global Summit. I think that very clearly outlines for me the work that we've done so far. We have waitlists for our Ally for Inclusion program that we run, the training that we run. We ran Trans 101. We have a trans woman who's out and a very active advocate. She's helped us accelerate our transgender journey very, very well. The one thing that I have learned, even though I'm part of the community myself, is in the last 1 year is you have to keep listening to the voice of community. You have to go back to people and they have to know who to reach out to when they face issues. You have to create those 2 or 3 names that they can reach out to saying, I'm having a challenge. what do I do? And then work through it to say, solve it for them, but also solve it for what needs to be done in a larger context to make this a safer and better place. So that's where I would leave it, Anubhuti. The journey itself is the biggest hit, and the journey of trans inclusion as well.
Thanks so much, Chitija. Something that really stuck out for me is, the corporate is the new village. I actually read something, the magazine called The American Observer. They said that HR is actually more powerful than the church and politics now in driving changes in our society. So I think you really hit the nail on the head right now. Small last question to Sneha. Sneha, what has been that one big win that you have seen in the last year or in this period for inclusion at Windsor?
I would say, Anubhuti, it's the journey, right? I mean, it's small wins. I would look at it that way. So, for example, when we set the Ally group, the idea was that, can we get more people involved? Can we really hear from the community itself, right? Can we hear from the allies? And then how do we build that instead of it being something that HR does, right? And how do we kind of get momentum behind this entire piece? I think that's one of the pieces that I cherish as a win. And then, of course, from there on, how do we go about hiring? For example, we hired a trans person, and of course, there's a lot of it that comes from to set the person up for success in terms of ecosystem, in terms of the organization part of it, to set the right systems for support, and settle the person well, So I think there have been many of these small steps that we've taken, and it's gradually built over a period of time. The policy rollouts, all of those pieces, I think the validation has been the recognition, I would say. So we moved up from bronze to silver this year, looking at the gold as well at some point of time, and that's been a good sort of validation of that we must be doing something right, I think, and on the other pieces as well, we have been recognized in top 50 GBTW best workplaces for women. We've been recognized by Avtar in the top 100 this year. Again, we recently recognized by EP Human Capital Awards for excellence in D&I practices. So some of those have been good validations as well, that we've been doing something good from an inclusion space standpoint. Sorry about the humble brag there, but I mean, I feel very proud of the work that the team does, and these shifts take time, and culture is not easy to measure. So I think some of these pieces, and when you obviously hear internally from employees, for example, we ask every 6 months that, do you feel valued by your, feeling respected by your peers and others in the organization? I think when you hear some of those anecdotes and you hear some of those data points as well, I think that validates that yes, we're on the right track as an organization. So that's what I would say has been a series of validations and small wins.
Thanks so much, Sneha. It has been such a wonderful experience talking to all three of you and learning about how you set the foundation for really strong inclusion. Many of you stepped up from bronze to silver and got recognized, and I think this sort of a forum brings about something measurable, something validating for all the efforts that we put in, because let's be honest, this is not an easy job. This is not something that any of us find easy. So it's a pattern back for all of you and a pattern back for everyone involved. With that, I would hand over to the next session just in time. Over to Pride Circle. Take it away.
Thank you, Sneha, Kshitija, and Tanvi for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and the work your organization has undertaken to foster and sustain LGBT+ inclusion. Thank you, Anubhuti, for moderating it so well. A huge shout out to all the leaders for joining us today, taking out time from your busy schedule to be part of this historic movement and sharing your stories and amplifying your thought leadership in this inclusion journey. With that, we had come towards the end of the session. Would like to invite Akshay Tyagi, lead BNI KSF, to do the closing. The floor is all yours, Akshay.
Thank you, Nikki. Such interesting panels, awards, all of it in the same place. What an interesting day indeed. I'm doing a tough job because, of course, I'm speaking on behalf of Keshav Suri Foundation and Mr. Keshav Suri. But I would like to first extend heartiest congratulations to all the participants at IWEI 2.0. The last 1.5 years made us understand the existing disparities within our communities. It has been a tough period for everyone, and more so for the LGBTQI+ community. The global pandemic revealed the truth about the realities of the intersections of our society, and the global pandemic has also posed apparent challenges, but no one seemed to be prepared for. For us at Keshasuri Foundation, these 2 years have been a period of understanding the sub-communities within the marginal communities. Understanding our responsibility and knowing that we are all in this together, we started an effort to support our people. Thanks to the Allyship Hospitality Group, who helped and supported us with dry ration kits and also delivered cooked meals for people in need, COVID positive patients at their doorsteps, especially people with disabilities, SATEC survivors, and people from the LGBTQI+ community. We also understood the kind of mental and emotional turmoil our people were in and ramped up our efforts to provide mental health care support to our people free of cost. We took this time as an opportunity for all of us to sensitize our students, our teachers at various schools and colleges, and also our colleagues and partners at various other organizations about gender, sex, and sexuality, and share tips on inclusion and belongingness to make atmosphere around us favorable. We are actively working with Garima Grahs, which are shelter home for transgender persons, to build capacity and our community members so that we make this world a better and a skilled place. It's since 2019 that the Keshasuri Foundation is offering a scholarship, which is fully funded scholarship, the Aditya Nanda Scholarship to pursue diploma in food production and bakery at the Allyship Hospitality School. We have been supporting various pride marches, skilling and sensitizing workspaces, colleges, and doing round of workshops for our people, including transaction, number of webinars, conferences, and creating more queer leaders through Queer Youth Leadership course, and collating and sharing messages of love, care, and hope with our people through It Gets Better India. Thanks to Stonewall UK, Pride Circle, and FICCI, who despite the global pandemic were able to launch the first ever India Workplace Equality Index last year. And not just that, but also sailed despite being in these tough times, are now successfully launching IWEI 2.0 report today. A special shout out to our sponsors, IBM and HSBC, for their generous support to IWEI and making this index a reality for all of us. Bringing the India Workplace Equality Index and then implementing has really helped us to learn from our partner organizations and the IWEI team. The last 1 year has definitely made us realize how the index has had the power to not just change cross-generational mindsets, but to activate a call to action now, from how hiring functions to how queer employees are looked at in the modern day Indian corporate setup. It is asking questions about LGBTQI+ employee retention. It is creating job opportunities and creating more queer-friendly spaces. I still think that there should be more and more organizations, especially Indian organizations, who should come forward and sign up for India Workplace Equality Index so that we really see our efforts paying off well. This is a great platform for all of us to learn and to strengthen our efforts towards LGBTQ+ inclusion at workplace. I think these 2 years have been an eye-opener for all of us to understand how important it is to recognize and uplift the communities in need. It is far from reality, but we need an equal and equitable society for each one of us. I want our efforts with Stonewall UK and Pride Circle to push the country and the systems to an anti-discriminatory society and anti-LGBTQI+ discrimination state of mind with policies and regulations backing up the talk. I would request more and more organizations to please come forward and take part in this global movement which supports human rights for each one of us. Namaskar. Over to you, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Akshay, for such encouraging thoughts and all the support KSF provides to imbibe the culture of inclusion and belonging. Would like to take a moment and extend our heartfelt gratitude and thanks to the entire team of KSF, Pride Circle, and Stonewall for making IWEI 2021 a grand success. A special mention to FICCI team for all the support for FICCI Bike for today's event. Reiterating once again, IWEI 2021 Top Employees Report is available to download. Please visit www.workplaceequalityindex.in. Before we close, an important announcement. Also, IWEI offers customized feedback report based on your submission along with an hour-long consultation with a team of experts. We encourage you to subscribe to this report as it will help you understand where you stand on the LGBT plus inclusion journey. It also helps you a deep dive into current practices and do some gap analysis and support you with a strategy for the future. This comes at a small cost. To avail this, your team can get in touch with us or write back to us. Congratulations once again to all the winners, and thank you for participating and making time today to be part of this event. See you all in IWEI 2022. Watch this space for more details and have a great rest of the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again to everyone for joining us today. It has been a historic day, and we continue to make progress on LGBT plus inclusion. Like we said, we have always believed this is a collective journey where each organization is pushing the bar higher to collectively make an equitable society. So congratulations again to all the organizations that participated and won the various awards. Thank you for your work. And we look forward to doing so much more together. Thank you very much for joining in today.